Here's some of the pieces we're going to be looking at from my collection today. Unfortunately, I don't have those amazing opulent pieces I was showing during the history, but these will hopefully help you out while learning to tell the Victorian jewelry through sight, through the clasps and the material and motifs in your own collection. As you can see from this illustration, T-bar hinges or tube hinges are the only antique hinges. And there's also C catches or clasps that are indicative of the Victorian era, but it doesn't mean that that is the only ones that can be on there, because things can be reclasped or rehinged through the ages. Let's jump right in with mourning brooches, which is from the grand or middle era of the Victorian period. The first one we're going to look at is a bog oak piece. I'm going to look at this more in depth after we get done with all of these, but I wanted to show you the tube hinge right here. And here's the C clasp, and it's very easy to see that it's just a C right there. These are original to the piece. The front of it has a reservoir where hair could have been placed, a pitcher, anything really. It's a very deep reservoir. It's actually surprising. It still has the original glass and the bog oak that was created to even hold it in there. It's a magnificently carved piece. I love it. Next we have this onyx like thick rectangular bar pin. It has a safety catch, which is a little bit newer than like the C clasps. It still has the tube hinge. It's small, but it's a 9-carat tube hinge. There's flea bites on this piece of onyx, which is sad because it's a beautiful piece. But that's what an onyx one looks like in a safety catch. This is, I call it a puzzle brooch. It's just made beautifully. It has onyx, and it's also made of tortoise shell. You can see the tube hinge. It has the C clasp, and here's a light just to show you that tortoise shell color underneath, so you know that it's tortoise shell. That's an easy way to figure out if it is tortoise shell or if it's you know, something that's opaque. It's not going to be tortoise shell. And here's some little like findings or rivets that are holding in those onyx pieces and those other pieces on the front. Now here's a piece that's masquerading as a Victorian mourning brooch. It's missing a spot, but it looks like Whitby jet. You turn it around though, and you can see it has a round hinge, even though it does have like a C looking clasp on it. I wanted to show this piece really close again, so you can see how intricately carved it is. And sometimes it's hard to see, but on bog oak there's striations. It looks like wood. There's not like a whole lot of mistaking it because it's carved. You can see the natural lines that a wood would have. The hinges are stuck in right here with little pins through the wood, instead of being soldered on. It has that tube hinge and C clasp, and in the reservoir, when you get up close again, you can see the striations in it as well. Victorian knot brooches. These consist of many different types of knots, although almost everybody calls them lover's knots. Right here I'm showing the actual lover's knot. It's a 4 circle, like encircled pieces. So here you see a very common brooch, and that's the actual lover's knot. Here are a few different variations of the knot. This is a true lover's knot as well, but it hasn't been pulled tight together to make those 4 encircles. So if this was pulled tight, it would. It's also called a tube brooch, so it's made of hollow gold-filled tubing. It is Victorian, although it has like a round machined clasp or hinge. It's actually been rehinged. And as you can see right here, there's some solder marks. It does have a wide C clasp. This would be mid-Victorian, so the Grand period. You can see right here the C shape of the clasp. You see this tubing technique a lot in the Victorian jewelry. It was cheaper to make instead of solid gold. Here we see just a different variation of a knotted brooch. This is also tubing, and it has imprinted or stamped designs on it, and like little applied gold flowers. And the things at the end, usually in the shape of hearts, are to close the holes up. Now, this is Victorian, but it has been reclasped instead of rehinged. You can see right there, there's a big spot. It still has a tube hinge or a T-bar hinge there. That's indicative of the Victorian period. But we have a rollover safety clasp, and you can see quite easily that it's been reclasped. And that's why when we see these different variations of clasps, we need to look to make sure it's not Victorian, because, like I've said before, they can be reclasped or rehinged throughout time. This is one of my favorite pieces I found. It is an Etruscan revival piece. It's 15 karat solid gold. It has a decorative tube hinge, which is just gorgeous. So it has those lines throughout, or ridges. And it also has, which almost looks like a trombone clasp, but it's not. It's got like a safety catch on there. And you find those more on some of the more expensive pieces, such as this one. This is a tri-knot or a trinity knot, which is a variation of Celtic knots. So it's not a true lover's knot, even though lots of people would call it a lover's knot. Here's a little bit of closer view of it, and I'm trying to show you that it has the granulations or milligrains of gold, which is just tiny dots of gold applied to it to make these beautiful patterns throughout. It's almost like icing a wedding cake. It's just gorgeous. Here's just another swirl brooch with a small tube hinge. This is not tarnished, but oxidized sterling silver, and has a beautiful paste stone in there. It does have an open back, so it lets the light through. And as you can see, the small tube hinge, and there's the C clasp, just the thin one. A lot of them that curl like that hold a little bit better. I always like when they're curled a little bit more. Here's a decorative bar pin. It's got etching in it. It's a little loose, the hinge is, but it has the tube hinge and the thicker, wider C clasp. The thicker C clasps usually are on a little bit lower end jewelry. This is a Victorian brooch or lapel pin. Some people even call it a watch fob, because it can definitely be used as that. It has a good sturdy C clasp on it, as you can see right there. It is gold filled, it's layered, and it actually has a little seed pearl in it. There's the tube hinge or T-bar hinge. And right here is the loop where you would hang the watch. Some people think that's where you would hang a chain, but it's not. And here's how you would wear it. Right here is where the loop would go, and you would just slip your watch right on it.